so much for staying with us today on Connect and Collaborate. We are continuing Manufacturing Week here, and talking with us today is Tim Heaton, president of CAMA. It's the Colorado Advanced Manufacturing Association. We're glad to have you along.
Thank you very much for having me.
Glad to have you here. And Jessica Wilbur from Reata Engineering, and we're going to be talking about sales, because as we mentioned in that previous segment, that you can work on the talent pipeline, you can get people working. But in order to keep them working, you have to keep the business going.
Exactly. It's a juggling act. Every entrepreneur goes through it.
I imagine.
But manufacturing, it's a little harder in the sense that you have inventory. You have to buy your sheet metal. You have to buy your parts or raw goods, and it's a balancing act. To keep your inventory just in time, keep your employees busy, keep your machines busy.
I imagine, because as we discussed throughout the week, that a lot of these machine shops, little manufacturing businesses, they're small. They're
Yes.
20 people, 10 people.
So statistically, 82% of all manufacturers in Colorado have less than $5 million in sales and less than 20 employees. So Colorado is a state that is making some pretty impressive things,
Right.
considering the size of the average company in Colorado.
Well, I'm saying if you have less than 20 employees, having a whole warehouse full of sheet metal that you're not using would be way too much overhead. So yeah, that has to be a real delicate balance.
Your CFO, if you're big enough to have a CFO, if not your accountant, is probably hounding you if you're sitting there with that much inventory sitting on the shelves. She's laughing because I'm sure you've heard those stories in Reata.
This is familiar.
We have 36 employees, and we also have an accountant that hounds us. So keeps us in check.
Well, that's what they're there for, and keeping that inventory balanced. It is that juggling act, but for good reasons. If you're paying to store inventory and not turning it out into product, odds are you're not making a profit.
You're not making money.
Yep,
Right.
Exactly.
So Jessica, tell me a little bit, you maybe not want to give your own company as an example, but explain why an accountant would be jumping on that.
I mean, it's with every business.
What the example might be.
With every business. You want to keep your overhead low, and obviously that comes down to the bottom line every month. So sales high, overhead low, which ends up creating a better profit for the business. But in order to create sales every month, you have to prospect, and you have to do certain things that require employees to obviously do what they're supposed to do every day,
right?
But also go over and beyond their role, especially in a small business.
Well,
such
if I can
as
back
ours.
you up just a second, is because we're talking about inventory, and inventory obviously means you've got vendors.
Yes.
So those vendors, they want to get paid. So to answer your question,
Right.
keeping it simple math here, you just bought all that metal, and you've now got to turn it into product to pay for that. Vendors, I can't remember many vendors that were giving us, net 120.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you can pay us next year. So
yeah.
no big deal.
I don't think I ran into that one.
Be interesting.
So that being said, the partnership that has to be developed with vendors is critical. How have you used that to your advantage?
So yeah, the trickiest part of our job on a daily basis is to there's two different tricky parts: establishing the customer relationship and maintaining that relationship. The second part would be establishing vendor relationships and maintaining that relationship. Our vendor relationships are what hold our business together because they supply our business. They are our lifeline.
Okay.
And a lot of them it's hard to understand that every day and remember that every day. But vendors want to get paid. And vendors expect us to pay within a shorter amount of time than we expect our customers to pay, because that's how we can provide a competitive advantage.
Right.
And as far as sustainability with the customer and building rapport, that's just an easy way for us to say, hey, we have your back. We'll hold on to this for you. But the vendor's over here saying, hey, where's my check?
Right.
Which is just a constant battle. Especially when it comes to our portion of the business, being a contract manufacturer.
Right.
So do you see those vendors strictly as suppliers?
I see them as colleagues more than not, because They're our right hand. Some of them may be, from anodizers to sheet metal manufacturers that are just providing raw material. Without them, we can't do our business. So for me, a vendor is a colleague, not so much just a supplier.
When you say colleague, do you go so far as to include them into your sales
I do.
sales channel?
I do.
How do you
How
see
so?
that working?
When I, establishing a vendor relationship for me as a salesperson, the purchasing agent in our company has a different relationship with them. He just buys their product. Without the vendor providing my material on time, I can't promise my customer they're going to have theirs, which is a big deal. So making certain that I know my anodizer knows me personally, on a professional, personal level.
Right.
I'm then able to make those phone calls myself if I'm looking for material, which helps, the overall companies work together better. I'm not just calling asking for a date. I'm not just calling to say, hey, where's my material? I'm calling to say, hey, you guys are anodizing this product for my customer, and without this product getting out the door, these machines aren't being built for the hospitals. And I'm able to kind of throw the sales spin into it,
Right.
Which is different than dealing with a purchasing agent on a daily basis.
So in a supply chain, obviously, and that's what we're really talking about here, is you have customers upstream, vendors downstream. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're using the downstream side as a critical component to the sales upstream, materials, etc. What are some of the other tricks you've used with vendors, or if you're ready to switch and go upstream to some of your customers, how are you building your customer base?
So with vendors, I already have, you don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. So you always want to try to utilize what you have in front of you and what's most accessible. I already have vendor relationships established, so it's easy for me to call them because vendors have other customers too.
Right.
You are not the only one buying from them. So you have to know that they have their own business.
Right.
Well, most of those other customers, if specifically an anodizer, an anodizer is anodizing parts. I make parts at Reata Engineering. Who is making those parts that they're anodizing that aren't my parts?
Okay.
So then I ask the questions.
So you work your way
Hey,
up
Mr.
or down
Vendor.
that chain.
Hey, Mr. Vendor. Who are these companies that you're doing business with? How can I go with you to some of these events that you may be going to? What can I do to help you grow your business, in which helps me grow mine, and vice versa? If I grow my business, I buy more from them, and so on and so forth.
And that was one of the points you wanted to touch on as well, Tim, that there's an importance of doing business with each other. In some cases, you might be competitors. As the situation Jessica just described, you're working together because you're each contributing something to that project.
Very much so.
Exactly. I think that's one of the things that's setting the manufacturers who are moving forward, who have a backlog of 12 to 18 months worth of work. They're the companies that see the manufacturer around the corner not as their competitor, but as you say, a potential colleague, a potential partner, a business development opportunity. And they're the companies that recognize that the real competition here is in China. Okay, and the more we work together here, the better off we're going to be to grow the sector in Colorado. So your example is great. If somebody else is having parts made and sent to that anodizer, why aren't you doing those parts?
Yeah, whose parts are those? And it's not me trying to take that business. It's me being an exceptional salesperson and trying to understand what is my business. How can I educate myself on what I'm not doing and what I'm not getting as far as business goes? What can I do to make that better?
Well, that's what I hear from talking with a lot of people in the aerospace industry here in Colorado, is they call them competimates.
Right.
Your competitors, but your teammates.
I've never heard that.
Oh, you haven't?
I love that.
Isn't it great? So yeah, they're competimates. So
Yeah,
just got to get everybody on board.
exactly.
Good term.
Exactly.
Did somebody patent
Coin
that or
that?
trademark that term?
I mean, they should.
I don't know. I'll let you know who to talk to
who we
before
owe- if-
you pursue it.
I don't
So
want to
yeah,
have to pay any royalty rights or anything like that.
competimates. So yeah, that's a great way to look at it, because you are working, so many of these projects. I didn't realize actually until Jessica pointed out, and maybe I did, but to focus it that way, that it's not one person, or not one person, one company making all the parts for whatever one project. You're all using your best skills
Correct.
for each area.
Which is why we should not be fearful.
Right.
And we should be more prone to working with these other manufacturers. Because we all have our own specific niche in which we can supply the customer.
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. That's great.
One of the fun things about CAMA that I've seen in of the organization is that, when we first started, there were a lot of manufacturers that didn't even realize some of these companies. I won't name names, but there was a group up in northern Colorado that literally were sending parts to Kansas for treatment when there was somebody just down the street that can do the same thing.
Oh.
But they didn't even know it.
Interesting.
And so this is
so CAMA helps build those relationships.
Exactly. This is yes, CAMA is doing that, but you're doing that with programs like this. The more we talk about it, the more manufacturers come to realize that they really aren't in this all by themselves.
Right.
And I think, and again, I was one for once, as a manufacturer, you do feel like you're out there all by yourself. Mm-hmm. And the more you do get out there and see that there's great opportunities, you start to find out that there are these, what'd you say, competimates? That you can do business with. And that, if we can just keep business in state, we can do a lot to grow the economy for manufacturing in Colorado.
And that's the importance, and that's why we have both of you on the show today, because with the Colorado Business Roundtable, and we want to connect and help everybody collaborate so that we're growing a better Colorado. Stay with us. We have more as we wrap up Manufacturing Week here on Connect and Collaborate. We're talking with Tim Heaton from CAMA and Jessica Wilbur of Reata Engineering.